Another grueling shift at Eastlake today. Working at juvie really sucks. Every time I clock in, I pretend it's my last day. But today, crossing the bridge on my walk home, I saw something incredible. I could make out about a dozen figures in silhouette. They were sitting in silence alongside the railroad tracks. A freight train pulled up, slowly, and then came to a halt. The silhouette said nothing. Without hesitation, they got to work. First, they jumped onto the wagons, then popped open the containers, making some sort of plastic straps fly off into the ground below them. As I watched the bandits, my heart began to race. They made off with whatever they could carry and vanished into the night. The cardboard remains of opened Amazon and UPS packages littered the track beds. The sight was thrilling and strangely frightening. I could hardly believe it. I was stunned by their sheer nerve. For the first time in months, I felt elated. I have no scruples when it comes to their actions. I admire the audacity. Let's be honest, it's not like the container company is going broke. The problem is this. These people seem too organized not to be part of some larger criminal network. Nothing that I would want to get caught up in. I'm solitary, by nature, anyway. Maybe I should just join them next time. I could use the free stuff and a little excitement. But then again, the new year is here, bringing some decent weather. Governor Gavin Newsom, our bumbling showman, has graced the rails with his presence in a feeble attempt to prove that officials are taking action against the thefts. The news cameras followed his every move as he picked trash off the tracks and borrowed work gloves and a ridiculous V-neck. Pathetic. At the press conference that followed, Newsom blathered on about memories that never were, gifts that were stolen, people denied the magical moments they were looking forward to experiencing. As if anyone believes that he knows, let alone cares, the slightest thing about the world outside his bubble. He's completely detached from the reality shared by most of his constituents. In the meantime, the trackside robberies continue. I've started hanging out at the train tracks, watching for raiders. What makes their actions so enticing to me and so scandalous to people like Newsom is the violations of an unwritten pact. At the moment of robbery, the container is no longer a sacred object with a predestined path. The products are in a kind of limbo, no longer in the hands of workers who made them, but not yet on the doorsteps of the consumer. When the thieves step in, capitalist theology crumbles. These glimpses into a world of risk have enchanted my mundane life. Yet I remain on the sidelines, only fantasizing about participating in these daring thefts. In the end, fear has too tight a grip. It's been almost a year since my last entry. I don't have the energy to write. Work has me totally burnt out. I feel like a shell of a person. Still, every time I see the remains of stolen packages on the streets around work, I can't help but smile. It's a reminder that for months and months, people walked straight to the trains and just took what they wanted. Today I skipped work and headed down to the Port of Long Beach to see where the containers originated. I found myself hypnotized by the massive machinery that orchestrates the flow of goods. Groups of trucks pass through checkpoints according to some indiscernible pattern, and the towering cranes move like a troop of dancing automatons. Each mechanical step carried the weight of countless hours of work compressed and packed into 2,000 cubic feet. It was both eerie and irresistible. Apparently, each ship holds 15,000 containers. I can barely comprehend the scale of the operation. And each one has stuff coming from all over the planet. Of course, these giants are packed with TVs and TV sets, but I wonder what else lies concealed inside the ships. An unknown quantity of drugs and guns must be hidden right under my nose. They're only one part of the dark commerce that thrives beneath the legitimate business. The containers are boxes of human exploitation, both concrete and abstract, licensed and illicit. In so many ways, the hulls of these ships are literally the underbelly of capitalism. These thoughts rattle in my head, bumping up against the memories of the railroad heists. I suppose this is why these robberies represent so much more to me than just feats of daring. Beneath the surface bravado, there's something hungry, even desperate. Exploitation and rebellion meet on the same tracks where I find myself stuck. The trucks, the cranes, the vast expanse of containers, so beautiful and violent. I think I'm becoming obsessed, but it feels cheap just to watch. I still can't imagine myself climbing onto the train like a stagecoach robber from a western. But then again, the authorities have responded to the wave of thefts by securitizing everything. The site of the heist now resembles a fortress. A brick wall topped with razor wire stands as a vain attempt to control the uncontrollable. Security cameras loom like watchtowers, surveying the surroundings with a relentless gaze. Regular police drive-bys have become the norm. Even still, I can't help but laugh at the inadequacy of this defense. I always knew that power thrives on the illusion of control, but now it's perfectly clear. Capitalism trembles at the first sign of defiance, whining for additional protections from the authority to which it so desperately clings. The walls and the barbed wire only serve to expose its inherent weakness. Recently, I watched from a distance as a freight hopper leaped from a passing train like a kid jumping a puddle. They moved freely, undeterred by the barricades and the cameras that had become part of this landscape. Their swagger reminds me yet again that the trains, despite all their efforts, are far from untouchable. I feel my sense of possibility being renewed. The trains, once a symbol of industrial might, are now vulnerable to anyone with the right eye and enough determination. Could the heights I admire still be within my grasp? With each passing day, the desire burns hotter. How long until it burns me up? Across the city, all I see are the cracks and the crevices, places just begging to be slipped into. I feel myself becoming an escape artist. Streets, railroad tracks, and hidden corners become my training ground. I've taught myself to spot weak points, convenient back alleys, camera blind spots, slivers of shadow. I've even timed how long the train stands still. I see the city in a completely new way. Even though I only work in the kitchen at Eastlake, I learned to see like a prison guard. Lately, I found myself using the eyes of a thief instead. Now, instead of scanning for threats, I look for weaknesses. In juvie, you need to know where everyone and everything is at all times. But now it's like stray objects and people no longer matter. I play a game with myself where I try to move through spaces unseen. The trick, I think, is either appearing so ordinary that no one pays me any attention, or better yet, choosing the shadowy paths where I won't be seen at all. At this very moment, I can feel the weight of possibility pressing down hard against my chest. I'm aware of the risks that lie ahead. But defiance is a way of overpowering fear. At some point, I found myself standing on the platform, the rumble of passing trains vibrating beneath my feet. The graffiti seemed to beckon to me. Where is the point of no return? Do I too become a participant, ripping off a system that has by design failed to deliver? I wouldn't be the first or the last. Some people live their whole lives outside the law. This might be my one chance too. What's holding me back?